This is a Dynamite Network podcast.
Hi, and welcome to the Dynamic Duel podcast, a weekly show where we review superhero films and debate the superiority between Marvel and DC by comparing their characters in stat-based battle simulations. I'm Marvelous Joe.
And I'm his twin brother, Johnny DC.
And in this episode, it's a big one, guys. It's our 375th episode. We are going to find out who would win in a fight between the teams of the Legion of Doom versus the Masters of Evil. Basically, it's the evil Justice League versus the evil Avengers for Marvel and DC. We've done 10 of these team duels now, including Justice League versus Avengers, Titan versus X-Men, Justice Society versus Fantastic Four, Suicide Squad versus Defenders,
Justice League Dark versus Midnight Suns, Arkham Asylum versus Sinister Six, Young Justice versus Young Avengers, Flash Rogues versus Brotherhood of Mutants, Doom Patrol versus the Guardians of the Galaxy. We even threw a bonus one in there last Halloween of Deceased versus the Marvel Zombies.
Yeah, if any of those episodes sound like they strike your fancy, be sure to listen to those in addition to listening to this episode, because they're a lot of fun, a lot of work goes into them, and we really appreciate when you guys check them out. Before we get into that matchup, we have an interview with the hosts of one of the podcasts in the Dynamite Podcast Network, Konsole Kombat. We'll get John and Dean on the line later on. If you like video games, you owe it to yourself to check this interview out.
As always, we list our segment times in our episode description, so feel free to check out the show notes if you want to skip ahead to a particular topic. Our artificially intelligent duel simulator, AJ9K, has a quick message for our listeners, so listen up.
Why, hello there. Do you love listening and chatting about Marvel and DC? Then become a part of the Dynamic Duel community on Patreon, where you can choose from 3 tiers. The Dynamic 2.0 tier lets you listen to this podcast without ads and gives you access to its Discord chat group where you can chat with Johnny DC and Marvelous Joe. The Fantastic 4 tier gives you that and more with 2 bonus episodes each month, including bloopers and top 10 shows where Johnny and Joe count down your favorite Marvel and DC subjects. The X-Force tier makes you an executive producer of Dynamic Duel, where every month you help the host choose what to review and who to fight against each other. And finally, the Dynamite Podcast Network tier allows aspiring podcasters to create their own battle-focused show using this Monte Carlo simulator. Johnny and Joe will help you develop your show, provide graphic support and consultation, and get you simulation results to announce on your show. Pitch the twins your show via email at dynamicduelpodcast@gmail.com or by reaching out to them on social media. Check it out at patreon.com/dynamicduel. Pip pip cheerio.
Thanks, AJ9K, and thanks to everyone who supports the podcast. Guys, be sure to tune into the other shows in the Dynamite Podcast Network this week, including Max Destruction, which pits your favorite action heroes from film and television against each other.
On the Senju World podcast, host Zachary Hepburn speculates on fights between fan-favorite anime characters. This Thursday, we'll find out who would win between Vegeta from Dragon Ball and Garou from One Punch Man. Don't forget to check out last week's episode as well. I was a guest host on that episode, and we found out who would win between Goku and Superman.
On the Konsole Kombat podcast, hosts John and Dean find out who would win in fights between popular video game characters. In yesterday's episode, they found out who would win in a fight between Ratchet and Clank and Jak and Daxter. Visit dynamicpodcast.com or click the link in our show notes to listen to all the shows in the Dynamite Podcast Network. And with that out of the way,
quick to the No Prize. A No Prize is an award Marvel used to give out to fans. Our version, the Dynamic Duel No Prize, is a digital award that we post on Instagram for the person that we feel gave the best answer to our question of the week. Last week, we asked, what is your favorite Superman logo and why? This, of course, was coming off of the news that James Gunn and David Corenswet posted the Superman logo that will appear on the new Superman film coming out next year.
Yeah, we got 3 answers, so let's go ahead and run down the 2 honorable mentions as well as the No Prize winner. Our first honorable mention goes to Miggy Matanguihan, who said,
Hey, what's up, guys? It's Miggy, and my favorite alternate Superman logo is a fan redesign from Reddit where The pentagon itself is the S, and the inside is a circle split into two hemispheres, kind of like Saturn Girls' logo. It's my favorite because it kind of goes away from recent interpretations where it's a family crest and instead like ups the stylization of the S, kind of like Syndrome from Incredibles.
Yeah, this is a design that Miggy shared on our Discord server, so everybody got to see what it looked like, and I'll do my best to try to describe it just like Miggy did. So imagine the red pentagon shape of the S shield, and it's all red, except for a gold circle that's in the center with a red band splitting the circle into two halves down the middle horizontally. And then from each of the circle halves, there's a line that extends to the edge of the shield. And it forms an S. It's really cool. You may just have to take his word for it.
Honestly, in my opinion, it's probably the coolest Superman logo I've ever seen. The only reason it doesn't get this week's No Prize award is because it's essentially fan art, but really cool fan art.
Yeah, it's very minimalistic, and they should bring that design into mainstream continuity.
It would be a great movie logo, honestly.
Yeah.
Great answer, Miggy. Our next honorable mention goes to Scott Camacho, who said,
I know I'm going to get some brownie points for this one, but my favorite Superman logo design has always been what the next logo design is. And right now, it'd be Johnny DC's Superman logo. He kind of did a modernized version of the figure 8 symbol, which is, I guess, the House of Jor-El symbol. And I really am captivated by it, and I really hope they take it into a movie.
As much as I wanted to give this one the win as well, it was just going to be a little too self-serving. So if you guys have listened to the podcast for a while, you'll know that Joseph and I are both graphic designers by profession, and I love doing different designs of superhero logos. I've been working on a Superman logo for a really long time, but I finally nailed one that I really liked, and I've been posting it to our Discord server and our social media accounts and tagging James Gunn.
Yeah, both of these honorable mention answers are a little bit esoteric due to the fact that they're not well-known designs and were just mentioned on our Discord. But I think that just means that if you're not part of our Discord server, you should join our Patreon. For just $2 a month, you can join and chat with the rest of the Dynamic Duel listening community that's there.
Yeah, it's super fun. Great answer, Scotty. But the winner of this week's No Prize is Travis Herndon, who said,
Hey guys, Travis here. So my pick would have to be the recovery suit logo. I really love that silver metallic chrome look it has. Combine that with the sort of skin tight, capeless black uniform he wore, kind of gave it that sort of badass vibe to me. So that's my pick. Recovery suit. I think that screams just badassery all in all. So that's my pick.
So the Superman emblem on Superman's recovery suit in the comics is actually just the standard Superman logo with different coloring. Instead of the traditional red and yellow, it's metallic silver, which is still really cool. I loved it in Zack Snyder's Justice League.
Yeah, it looked really good. There have been a lot of like adaptations that we've seen of it. I think like the poster to Tim Burton's scrapped movie that he was going to direct with Nicolas Cage, that used the recovery suit. I think, at least in the poster, it was silver and black.
Well, I mean, yeah, the coloring was the same, but the logo design was very much different. Great design, though.
Yeah, there's something just so streamlined about the black suit Superman that I think has this cool, darker appeal over his, more traditional primary color suit.
Yeah, it's pretty sleek and minimal. As long as Superman doesn't have the mullet, he looks great in it.
Well, congrats to Travis for winning this week's No Prize. If you, the listener, want a shot at winning your own No Prize, stay tuned to later on this episode when we'll be asking another question of the week. And now that that's done,
on to the news.
All right, let's get the hosts of the Console Combat podcast, which is part of the Dynamite Podcast Network, on the line. Hey, John, good to have you back on the show since you were last on for Ghost Rider Spirit of Vengeance. And Dean, this is your first time on Dynamic Duel, but you're a relatively new executive producer, having come on board as you became the co-host of Console Combat. How's it going, guys?
Great. Hello. Great.
For those who may not know, Console Combat is an awesome show that's like this show, Dynamic Duel, but with video games. You guys just finished your 15th episode. No, actually your 16th episode with The Last of Us's Joel Miller versus Days Gone's Deacon St. John. Your 15th episode was actually the Halo review.
Yeah, season 1.
Yeah, you guys are crushing it, and you guys have been since your first episode even, I think largely because like the crazy amount of prep work John put into the show's creation, and Dean, your vast knowledge of the gaming industry. So to start off, I just want to say, great job, guys.
Thank you.
Doing so well.
Thank you.
You guys have done episodes like Nathan Drake versus Lara Croft, Luigi versus Tails, Master Chief versus Kratos, Assassin's Creed versus Hitman. Out of all those episodes you've done, what has been your favorite episode to record so far?
That's a good question.
Our last episode that we had released, the one that you just mentioned, Joel Miller versus Deacon St. John, that has been probably my favorite to do because we diversified the style of fighting. We took away the limitations of each other and we brought an aspect of the worlds they came from together and made the amalgamation. Mm-hmm. And that for us was a lot of fun because it gave the opportunity for the game to be involved, or rather the games to be involved with the process more so than usual.
Yeah, we were playing around with that a little bit. I think it worked out pretty well. I hope it doesn't seem like we kind of focus more on the combined fight against the variable that came in, but I feel like it was still viable for how we did it. And yeah, it was fun.
Yeah, I think you guys bring a lot of interesting ideas to the speculative battles that you guys do. It's very unique from the other shows in the network, like what Jonathan and I do, where it's just the two characters and then non-environment and stuff like that. You guys actually bring in the environment. You even have like power-ups from other video games, which I thought was brilliant. It's just a lot of fun the way you guys do that. And also, you guys used to do tournament-based battles where the winners of battles would go on to compete against the other winners. And that was an idea that Jonathan and I loved, but never did. We kind of toyed around with it. Do you guys think you'll continue with the tournament battles, or are you just going to stick to the single matchups?
I think we'll go back to doing a tournament at some point. The difficult part is trying to find characters that match up well enough, and also while trying to consider how they would match with characters that are in the other brackets in future fights. So like we saw a lot of that in this last tournament was a lot of really lopsided fights. For example, our Scorpion versus Nemesis fight. You know, it seemed like it was going to be a wash one way, but it ended up going the other way massively just because of the way the stats lined up. And that's something we need to take into consideration more, I think, next time, just because we focused on getting the first set of brackets where they're like, yeah, this is an even match, and it makes sense. But we didn't really consider too much about later on. And don't get me wrong, it was fun because we had those really goofy matchups. But at the same time, it's like, yeah, this one was kind of a wash.
Yeah, Ezio versus Tails was pretty fun to listen to.
Yeah, I had fun with that one for sure.
Yes. Kudos to you guys for actually putting in that work and getting it done in that way.
Yeah, and I think John's idea to have that we open the show was definitely a good idea.
Yeah. What I love about Console Combat is that not only do you guys also do reviews in addition to the battle sims, but you also talk about the news. You have your news segments. Right now, currently, I only have my Switch Lite, and I haven't been hard into video games really since I started this podcast because it's just taken up all my time. And that's going on 8 years. Good God.
Wow.
But back in the day, I remember going on to IGN almost daily, and I was a subscriber to Game Informer just to follow the news on what was going on in the industry and see what video games were coming out and stuff. And actually, back in the day, one of Jonathan and I's former coworkers was Brian Crescente, who started Kotaku.
Oh, wow.
And we used to talk to him all the time about gaming and shit. And really, I just miss hearing about people talking about gaming. And even if I'm not necessarily playing the games, I still find it fascinating to hear. And you guys seem like particularly knowledgeable about like the technical side of gaming, such as what goes into making a game and whatnot. Have either of you guys ever been in gaming development or wanted to?
I had originally wanted to do that going out of high school and into college. The only class that I really did well in was the 3D animation. But even then, it was like basic model building in Blender. So I'm vaguely familiar with that. Maybe not in practice, but I can understand the concept and I understand how the coding and everything works. But actual practice doing it, no, I have no experience in actual game design.
Well, it's definitely clear that you have some of that background just with the amount of technical knowledge and actually a vast gaming history, both of you guys. What is your gaming history? Like, when did you guys start gaming and what are you currently playing?
All right, on this one, I can go back as far as the NES.
You're old.
Yes, I am. 36 this year. I remember vividly playing the NES And then this was the transition for me that I actually remember the games that I was playing. I came home one day, and without telling me that anything had changed, my mother just let me go to the video games and turned it on, and it was a totally different game. And I looked at the system and I said, wow, this is different. And my love for the Super Nintendo was born. That's really where my gaming took hold. I mean, it's been just off the rails ever since. I've played every Nintendo rendition up to the GameCube, then the Wii. I didn't do the Wii U. I have a Switch. I also grew up along PlayStation. I've had every system for the PlayStation except for the handhelds. I've always been a fan of those two primarily. I mean, you can tell by the way we talk to each other on the show, we do not agree necessarily on the favorites, whereas I hate Xbox. Dean is much more preferential to Xbox. I've never cared for the Xbox myself personally. But so yeah, I mean, Nintendo all day for me. Then PlayStation for sure it's equal. And lately my addictions, I mean, everyone's besides Dean and his hate for Fortnite, it's almost always Fortnite for me. But I'm a big fan of like games like Hogwarts Legacy, which is a fantastic game. The Call of Duty games, the Black Ops is my thing. We actually been playing that game a little bit. And if anyone has listened to the show, everyone knows my absolute love for the Metal Gear franchise. And yeah, that's the one for me for sure.
Mine actually started a long time ago. It was probably a couple years, if not about a year after the original Xbox came out. I remember my parents, we went to Walmart. And this was back in the day when Walmart still had the demos of game consoles for like, Xbox, PS2, GameCube, all that stuff.
You're old.
Yeah, not as old as you. And we were looking at all the game stuff, and my dad goes, thinking about getting one of these for your brother. Which one do you think he'd want? I'm like, I don't know. I've never played any of these. And he's like, well, just look at like the covers and see which ones you think look best. It's like the Xbox ones or the PlayStation ones. I'm like, so I'm looking at games or whatever. I'm like, yeah, this game looks fun for the Xbox or whatever. So then I come home and they bought the Xbox and it was for me. And so that's kind of when that started. So that was probably '02 or '03, somewhere in there. And since then, I've actually still have that original Xbox and, a couple other ones. I've got the 360s, Xbox One. I don't have the newest one because it's pointless with everything on PC. I've started dabbling when I got more into high school into the PlayStation stuff, mainly for the exclusives. So I started with the PS3 and then PS4, PS5 now. And I went back a few months ago and actually ended up getting a PS2 complete in box, which was nice for a decent price. So I started playing with that. But most of the time I lean towards PC. I do have some of the Nintendo consoles, SNES, Wii, things like that. I just don't play them as much. But PC is usually where I'm sitting down and playing something, unless it's a console exclusive like Spider-Man. But lately, like John was saying, I did play some Black Ops with him the other day. And honestly, the one I've been playing the most is City Skylines 2. It's a city builder game. I don't know why. It's just oddly addictive.
It's like a SimCity type simulation.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. It's
Nice.
like a more modern and upgraded and more fleshed out version.
Yeah, I may have dated myself by saying SimCity, but I don't know what the kids are playing these days.
I played it too.
Yeah, actually, John, your and my gaming histories are remarkably similar in that I started out with the Super Nintendo. And actually, that's why your E-Honda versus Sumo Santa episode was my favorite, because Street Fighter 2 was the very first video game I ever owned.
Oh.
Jonathan and I got it for Christmas. So there was that tie in there. And I first mained as E-Honda because I could spam the 1,000-hand slap move, and Jonathan couldn't do shit about it. So that was always fun. So going back to the podcast, what are some of the matchups and reviews that listeners can expect in the future from Console Combat?
Well, we are actually in the midst of discussing our next review right now. We're going to do the Scott Pilgrim versus the World film from 2010. We're actually looking to put the panel of network people together on that. So, look for that possibly having a couple of features. For fights, we got Jack and Daxter versus Ratchet and Clank, which would have come out yesterday. One of the ones that I've talked about recently that I think is going to be a lot of fun, I'm calling it a bullet time battle because we're going to use Max Payne versus Michael DeSanta from GTA 5.
Nice.
Yep.
We're actually still trying to find a good matchup for Raiden from the Metal Gear series. So if anyone's got ideas, throw them at us. Someone said for someone from Overwatch. So And I mean, this is something that we're just going to tease now, but we don't have a date for him yet. But we are definitely going to do Sonic versus Mario down the line. It's no questions asked going to happen.
Well, we have to. He's kind of on our cover.
Well, that, and I mean, it's the question that everyone has. It's the one that everyone always wants to know because, of course, they're the two icons of the two most powerfully known consoles in the gaming industry.
If they really want to know that bad, we have the Mario and Sonic at the Olympics games. Just play those.
Or Smash Brothers.
Or Smash Brothers, yeah. Honestly, we consider the nature of the video game roster of just infinite characters really to be open to suggestion. And I mean, we obviously have no quarrels with reuse either. So if people see a character that they've seen in the past and they want to go up somewhere else against someone else more prominent, like there are so many options to play with, and it's literally the world is our oyster. And I think that's one of the most enjoyable parts of us doing this show is we just have so much to work with.
For sure. I can't wait for you guys to do a Link episode because the Zelda series is my favorite game series of all time.
That one's commonplace. I'm actually curious about putting video games that are racing based against each other. That one I feel like is going to be our hard point, but we're going to make it work somehow, I promise.
All right, Need for Speed versus Gran Turismo.
And you guys could describe it as maybe like a Mad Max style race and throw in some like Mario Kart power-ups and shit.
Hell yes.
Awesome. That sounds like a lot of fun. Well, it was great to have you guys on as part of this episode and as part of the Dynamite Network. So just keep crushing it. Keep doing what you guys are doing because it's awesome. Listeners, if you love video games, you literally have no excuse not to be listening to Console Combat, which you could do anywhere you listen to podcasts or by visiting dynamicpodcasts.com. Thank you guys so much for stopping by and can't wait to listen to more of what you got.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks. Appreciate it.
Great bunch of guys. Again, if you like video games, you cannot miss their show. It's fantastic. I feel like I didn't get to ask a single question there. What the heck?
No, Jonathan couldn't make it to the interview because it was recorded earlier. But yeah, great talking to them. Again, visit dynamicpodcasts.com or search for Console Combat spelled with 2 Ks wherever you listen to podcasts.
But considering that Console Combat is a podcast focused around video games, that leads us to our question of the week. What is your favorite DC or Marvel video game and why? And I'm sure we've asked this question before, but I feel like it's been a really long time. There's been a lot of great games to come out recently. So yeah, let us know what your favorite is. Record your answer at dynamicduel.com by clicking on the red microphone button in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen, which will prompt you to leave us a voicemail. Your message can be up to 30 seconds long, and don't forget to leave your name in case we include you on the podcast. We'll pick our favorite answer and award that person a Dynamic Duel No Prize that we'll post to Instagram. Be sure to answer before March 16th.
In a world where fantasies collide and heroes clash, one podcast network rises above the rest. Prepare yourself for the ultimate showdowns in comic books, video games, movies, and anime. The Dynamite Podcast Network presents Console Combat, where video game legends brawl every Monday. Dynamic Duel, where comic book titans smash every Tuesday. Max Destruction, where TV and action heroes battle every Wednesday. And Sendro World, where anime champions clash every Thursday. Join us as we speculate on the matches and, armed with the power of mathematical simulations, discover who will emerge victorious. Visit dynamicpodcast.com, where we settle the debate and settle the score.
But I think that does it for all the news for this episode, so let's go ahead and get into our main event, our big team duel, where we find out who would win in a fight between the villainous organizations of the Legion of Doom and the Masters of Evil. All right, the Legion of Doom versus the Masters of Evil. This episode has been a long time coming, primarily because these teams consist of the greatest villains in both Marvel and DC, and it'll be a lot of fun to pit these guys against each other. Now, this isn't our first villain team duel. We've done several already, including Arkham Asylum versus Sinister Six and the Flash Rogues versus the Brotherhood of Evil. But I feel like this is the big villain team matchup. Like, does it get bigger than this in terms of villain teams?
No, absolutely not. The Legion of Doom, hands down, features DC's most prominent villains, just like how the Justice League features its most prominent heroes.
Yeah, and like the Avengers, who by this point in their comics history, that team has incorporated almost every single hero that Marvel has. The Masters of Evil have had dozens upon dozens of members over the years, and they have also probably included almost every single villain there is at some point. But we narrowed these teams down to just 7 characters per side, because that's how our duel simulator is set up.
But to explain the methodology behind our team duels, let's go to our sentient duel simulator, Alfred Jarvis 9000. AJ9K, tell our listeners how you go about determining a winner in our team duel matchups.
Yes, of course, sir. The way I determine a winner between the 2 teams is by running 1,000 Monte Carlo simulations between every character on each team using their statistics. A Monte Carlo simulation is a probabilistic model used to determine outcomes through random sampling. In this case, I randomize the statistics along a normal distribution as a way to simulate the many variables that can occur during battle. The stat parameters are based on the official Marvel Power Grid, from which the DC characters' statistics are extrapolated. Additional stat categories are included, such as range, damage potential, versatility, and perception, in order to create a more detailed and accurate simulation. The results of the 49,000 simulations provide a percentage of wins for each character on both teams. The team with the higher average win rate is declared the victor, as they have a higher probability to win any given battle. In an equitable pairing, neither team should win 100% of the matches. The comic book stories have shown that there's even a way for Batman to defeat Superman, so the confidence rate of my method falls in line with the precedents that have been established in the source material. My mathematical simulations are without subjectivity or bias. Feats are not the sole consideration, nor are fan votes tabulated for determination of the winner.
Thanks, AJ9K. Before we run the simulations, though, we like to break down each team's histories and rosters before improvising a scenario on how we imagine one of the simulations would play out beat for beat.
And I believe it's my turn to go first with the history of the Legion of Doom. Now, when most people think of the Legion of Doom, they think of the diabolical team featuring Lex Luthor, Giganta, Toyman, or Solomon Grundy from the 1970s cartoon Challenge of the Super Friends, which is where the team made their first appearance. In the comics, the team didn't make their debut until the mid-90s in the pages of Extreme Justice. This team was led by the hero-turned-villain Brainwave, and it included Killer Frost, Major Force, and a robotic duplicate of Gorilla Grodd. That team, of course, met defeat at the hands of the Extreme Justice team, which you can learn more about in our Captain Atom vs. Wonder Man and Wonder Twins vs. Cloak and Dagger duel episodes. While a cartoon-inspired roster would be featured in Alex Ross's and Jim Krueger's out-of-continuity Justice miniseries, a team with the Legion of Doom name wouldn't appear again in the DC universe until 2011, when Superboy Prime formed a team that included Inertia, Sun-Girl, and Brainiac 8, aka Indigo, to go up against the Teen Titans, who successfully managed to defeat Superboy's Legion. You can learn more about the Teen Titans in our Titans vs. X-Men Team Duel episode. Now, although Lex Luthor had created several teams of supervillains over the years, including the Injustice League, the Injustice Gang, the Secret Six, and the Secret Society of Supervillains, it wasn't until 2018 that Lex Luthor finally and officially formed the Legion of Doom. When the Justice League defeated the universe-destroying dragon Barbados, they cracked the source wall at the very edge of the universe in the process. From this crack emerged the Omega Titans, who absorbed entire worlds, including Cthulhu, the homeworld of the villain Brainiac. After protecting Earth from the Omega Titans, the then heroic Lex Luthor became discouraged by the seeming inevitable state of entropy of the world and built a time machine to travel 1,000,000 years into the future to see what would become of it. He was surprised to find a world of villains that worshipped him, having discovered writings of his millennia earlier that caused the world to embrace entropy and doom. Upon returning back to his time, Lex discovered a secret underground chamber within his father's old Legionnaires Club, founded by the immortal Vandal Savage, with writings detailing the secret origins and forces of the multiverse, as well as a doorknob capable of unlocking those forces. Lex assembled the Legion of Doom in order to harness the hidden universal forces and unlock the totality, the primordial energy source of the multiverse imbued within a portion of the source wall that had recently crashed to Earth inside of a massive head that broke off from the wall. This legion included Sinestro, Gorilla Grodd, an infant version of the Flash villain Turtle, Black Manta, Cheetah, and the Joker, with a shrunken Lex Luthor and Joker infiltrating and controlling Superman and Martian Manhunter's bodies, and Sinestro and Gorilla Grodd in control of two of the hidden universal forces, the Invisible Spectrum of Light and the Still Force. The Legion seized the totality, though the Justice League stole it from them before it could be fully unlocked. After partnering with the Batman Who Laughs, Lex Luthor learned more about the nature of the totality, how it was a prison for the being that created the DC multiverse, Perpetua. After Black Manta gained the Tear of Extinction and Cheetah the Void Wind, two more hidden forces, the Legion was able to nullify magic, kill the Greek god Poseidon, and flood the planet, allowing them to take back the totality. Feeling he achieved all that he desired and unwilling to take further orders, Black Manta was booted from the Legion by Lex Luthor, along with the Joker, who hated that Lex had sided with the Batman Who Laughs. With help from Professor Ivo, Lex was able to recreate Brainiac, who replaced Manta and Joker on the team. After unlocking the Black Apple and the Sixth Note, two more hidden forces, the Legion was able to partially awake Perpetua, who helped Lex evolve into a human/Martian hybrid known as Apex Lex. As the battle between the Legion of Doom and the heroes of the multiverse raged on, a sense of dread and faithlessness fell upon the multiverse, fully awakening Perpetua. As Perpetua began destroying and reshaping entire universes in her dark image, the Legion came to her for their rewards, at which point she turned Brainiac into her throne and siphoned the hidden forces from the Legion members and imbued them into Lex, giving him the power to reshape reality on a multiversal level. Perpetua seemingly erased the Justice League, and later depowered Lex after the Batman Who Laughs convinced her that he would serve as a better general. If you've listened to our Batman Who Laughs vs. Cosmic Ghost Rider Duel episode, you'll know that this led to the Dark Knight's death metal storyline, where the Batman Who Laughs betrayed and killed Perpetua, only to later be killed by a World Forge-empowered Wonder Woman. Regardless, the Legion of Doom had been disbanded, though it may return someday soon. For my 7-member team roster, due to the Legion of Doom's short career in the comics, it is admittedly heavily inspired by the Super Friends cartoon. I'm choosing Lex Luthor, who founded the Legion of Doom in the comics and was depicted as the team's leader even in the Super Friends. I'm also going with Gorilla Grodd, who was not only in the cartoon, but a robotic version of him was a member of the first Legion of Doom iteration in the comics. The same goes for Brainiac, as a version of him was on the team led by Superboy Prime, so he's of course on my roster. I'm also going with Sinestro, Cheetah, and Black Manta, who were among Lex's initial picks for the Legion, and again, were all in the cartoon. Though Joker was also chosen in the comics, he later left the team and was never in the cartoon series, and he was already on my Arkham Asylum team from a previous episode, so he's out. For my final member, I've decided to go with Solomon Grundy, as he was in the cartoon, and because, based on your roster that I know of, I thought he was the best match for Absorbing Man. So to reiterate, my Legion of Doom team is Lex Luthor, Gorilla Grodd, Brainiac, Sinestro, Cheetah, Black Manta, and Solomon Grundy, each of whom you can learn more about in their respective Duel episodes.
That was the most convoluted, short backstory ever. I did not expect that.
What do you want from me?
I had no idea that the Legion of Doom really had no presence in the comics until fairly recently.
Yeah, within the past 6 years, I guess.
Why is that the case? Like, why didn't DC capitalize on the popularity of that team from the Super Friends cartoon?
It's weird because they've made like a bunch of references to the Legion of Doom and a lot of Elseworlds works. Like, Kingdom Come, the Gulag that Mr. Miracle designed was based off the Legion of Doom headquarters. They featured in a lot of television series and stuff like that, just never in mainstream continuity in the comics, or at least never a version that was like the one from the Super Friends cartoon. This counterpart to the Justice League, as it were.
Yeah, you would think from like how often they're included, even in shows like Harley Quinn, that they were just this like mainstay comic book entity. And it's so bizarre that it's not the case. And like the story that they were in was convoluted as hell. Like you're talking about the Black Apple and the Sixth Note, and I'm like, what the hell is this? Talking about apples now? I don't get it.
Yeah. Scott Snyder, he kind of changed everything about the fabric and nature of the DC universe. So makes sense. That whole storyline was meant to tie into both Dark Knight's Metal and Dark Knight's Death Metal. It was like a bridge between those two series.
I have no idea what you're saying, but I will take your word for it.
Okay. I've only mentioned them several times on this podcast.
You know I don't listen to you, and I don't understand anything you're saying when it comes to the DC multiverse and the metal or whatever.
That's fair.
Now, this makes me think that the Legion of Doom is just one big ripoff of the Masters of Evil, because the Masters of Evil have been around since the 1960s in Marvel, and we know that the Challenge of the Super Friends cartoon wasn't around until the 70s. So once again, DC ripping off Marvel, as always.
I'm pretty sure that the first iteration of the Masters of Evil was nothing like a premier team of supervillains. They were probably like C-list at best.
Shows what you know. Let me go into their backstory. Now, the Masters of Evil is one of Marvel's longest-running supervillain groups and one of its largest. They are often regarded as the antithesis to the Avengers, where that team is considered Earth's mightiest heroes. The Masters of Evil are Earth's mightiest villains. The group was initially gathered by Baron Heinrich Zemo, a World War II adversary of Captain America, who, thanks to his secret formula Compound X, had ceased aging. Taking refuge in South America over the decades, Baron Zemo eventually became aware of his nemesis' resurgence. Captain America, previously presumed dead, had been revived and joined the Avengers, a team you can explore further in our Justice League vs. Avengers duel. Intent on confronting his old enemy but unwilling to take on all the Avengers single-handedly, Baron Zemo resolved to assemble his own team. He handpicked some of the most formidable villains the heroes had ever faced. The initial lineup of the Masters of Evil included Baron Zemo himself, along with the Black Knight, the Melter, and Radioactive Man. Together, they unleashed Zemo's unbreakable Adhesive X chemical formula across New York City. Despite their efforts, the Avengers sought assistance from the villain known as the Trapster, an expert in adhesives, and used his antidote to thwart the Masters of Evil's plan. Baron Zemo managed to evade capture by fleeing in his helicopter, and undeterred, he persisted in his mission by recruiting the formidable Asgardians known as the Enchantress and Scourge to bolster his ranks. Together, they succeeded in manipulating Thor, turning him against his fellow Avengers through enchantment. Unfortunately, Iron Man managed to break the spell and snap his ally out of it. Subsequently, the villains were exiled to another dimension. However, their exile proved temporary as the Enchantress employed her magical abilities to return them home. Baron Zemo then focused on recruiting the failed businessman Simon Williams, who sought revenge on Tony Stark. Subjecting Simon to ionic energy bombardment, Zemo transformed him into Wonder Man. And for more information on him, refer to our Captain Atom vs. Wonder Man duel episode. Zemo utilized Wonder Man to infiltrate the Avengers and betray the heroes. Despite this, Wonder Man had a change of heart and sacrificed himself to aid in the defeat of the Masters of Evil. After Baron Heinrich Zemo met his demise in a rock slide during a confrontation with Captain America, the villainous team found themselves leaderless and temporarily disbanded. However, a new incarnation of the team emerged under the leadership of the robotic villain Ultron, who recruited some fresh faces, including Whirlwind and Claw. Their scheme involved hypnotizing Jarvis, the Avengers' butler, with the intention of using him to bring down the heroes. Yet their plans were thwarted once more due to betrayal from within their own ranks, the Black Knight, who was secretly an ally of the Avengers. Though the Masters of Evil suffered defeat once again, the resilience led to a prompt reformation. This time, they operated under the guidance of the nefarious scientist and Ant-Man antagonist, Egghead. Their roster expanded to include Tiger Shark, Scorpion, Moonstone, Shocker, and the Beetle. They concocted a scheme to frame and disgrace Ant-Man, whom they captured with hopes of coercing him to join their ranks. However, their plan backfired when the captured hero ingeniously constructed his own arsenal to combat the villains. Egghead met his demise when his gun exploded, being struck by a well-aimed arrow from Hawkeye. Once again, the Masters were disbanded. However, Heinrich Zemo's son, Helmut, emerged onto the scene, assuming his father's mantle as Baron Zemo and assembling a new iteration of the Masters of Evil. This revamped team included formidable villains such as the Absorbing Man, Titania, Yellow Jacket, Mr. Hyde, and the Wrecking Crew, which consisted of the Wrecker, Piledriver, Thunderball, and Bulldozer. Although this group managed to temporarily overrun the Avengers Mansion and scatter the heroes, the Avengers eventually regrouped and reclaimed their headquarters, defeating the Masters once more. Yet driven by unwavering hatred, Baron Zemo persistently reassembled his group, this time enlisting the likes of the Fixer, Screaming Mimi, Beetle, Goliath, and Moonstone. However, at this juncture, most of Earth's heroes had vanished following their confrontation with the malevolent psychic entity known as Onslaught, a conflict detailed in our Chief vs. Professor X battle. This prompted Zemo to reconsider his tactics, leading him to rebrand his Masters of Evil as the Thunderbolts. While masquerading as heroes, they harbored secret ambitions of world domination. However, the full details of their backstory will be explored in another team duel. The Thunderbolts' eventual transformation into genuine heroes sparked a bitter rivalry with the emergence of a new Masters of Evil. Under the leadership of the villain known as the Crimson Cowl, this new group attempted to coerce the Thunderbolts into joining their ranks or face annihilation. Despite repeated attempts by their former allies, the Thunderbolts emerged victorious time and again. Eventually, though, the villain known as the Red Skull used his reality-warping cosmic cube to rewrite history so that Captain America had always secretly been a member of the evil organization Hydra. At that point, Baron Zemo forged an alliance with the Captain, persuading several longtime Thunderbolts members to defect and join his new Masters of Evil. This newly formed group served as the personal army of the evil Captain America, as together they seized control of the United States. The Masters of Evil rose to engage in battle against a united coalition of America's heroes who fought fervently to reclaim their country. Eventually, the heroes succeeded in restoring Captain America's true identity, defeating Hydra and the Masters of Evil in the process. And that's their backstory. For the 7-person roster for this team duel, I went with characters that span the broad history and multiple iterations of the Masters of Evil over the years.
Okay.
I started with Baron Zemo, the Baron Helmut Zemo version, whose father started the Masters of Evil and who helmed multiple versions of the team on his own. Secondly, I'm going with Ultron, who was the second iteration of the team's leader and is a powerful Avengers villain. Next, I have some of the earliest members of the team, the Iron Man villain, Radioactive Man, and the Thor villain, Enchantress, taking up the 3rd and 4th slots due to their powerful energy and magic powers, respectively. My 5th member, I will always associate with the Masters of Evil as the very first boss villain you face in the Captain America and the Avengers arcade video game, and that's the Ant-Man villain, Whirlwind. Penultimately, I have Black Panther's villain Claw on the team due to his powerful sonic powers and 9 destructibility, and rounding out the group is the Hulk villain, Absorbing Man, who was the last member of this group to join the Masters of Evil, but has a great wild card power that I think will make things interesting. So, to reiterate, the 7-member Masters of Evil team that we're going with in this duel is Baron Zemo, Ultron, Radioactive Man, Enchantress, Whirlwind, Claw, and Absorbing Man. And the Legion of Doom is going down, because they're like not even really a team, in my opinion, at least compared to the Masters of Evil.
Dude, I mean, maybe not in the comics, but like literally everywhere else they are. And it's on. And also, like, besides Ultron, I was right. Friggin' C-list villains, bro.
You are entirely wrong. A lot of these villains have shown up in the movies. Like Baron Zemo was the main villain of Civil War. You have Claw, who was a villain in the Black Panther movie. Absorbing Man, who was the villain in the Hulk movie that we reviewed last week. Yeah, there's a lot of them.
Okay, so a few B-listers, and the rest of them are C-listers.
Right, because everybody knows who Gorilla Grodd is, right?
Yeah, dude. He was in the Super Friends.
Okay.
But now that we've got their histories and rosters out of the way, let's speculate on how one of the simulated matches will go. The winning team is determined by simulations, not this speculation, but it's fun to imagine how this battle could play out. AG9K, what are the rules of our speculation?
Well, I should say there are no rules, other than the teams have no prior knowledge of the other going into the fight. All they are aware of starting out is that the other side is a threat that needs to be eliminated. For the speculation, the groups will begin approximately 50 meters apart in a nondescript environment that will have no bearing on the match itself, as no environmental statistics are considered in my simulations. The teams must earn victory on their own merit.
All right, then let's get into it. The Legion of Doom and the Masters of Evil meet on the battlefield. Who goes first?
I feel like on my team, Cheetah would go first, and on your team, Whirlwind would probably go first. So they're likely to clash out the gate, just head on, with Cheetah just slashing off all of Whirlwind's armor.
No, she would just bounce off of Whirlwind. Like, his whole thing is that he spins with such speed that the centrifugal force that he generates just repels any physical attack that's made against him. So Cheetah, she tries to hit him, but she just gets rocked back into her teammates. And Whirlwind is going to follow up by unleashing a volley of buzzsaws at the Legion of Doom, just slicing them up to bits.
Yeah, except those buzzsaws never reach the Legion because Sinestro goes on the defensive and he puts up a yellow force field between the teams in the form of a castle wall, which the Legion can use defensively like a fort. And then this yellow dragon construct forms just perched on the wall, and it's going to shoot this massive fireball at Ultron.
At Ultron, that's not going to do anything. Ultron's made out of adamantium, so he'll be fine because that's the most durable metal ever. But Sinestro making a castle wall is going to play right into Enchantress's strengths because she's Asgardian. So she's just going to magically conjure this army of like dozens of Viking warriors who just storm this castle and slay the dragon with their axes and spears.
Nah, I mean, they may kill the dragon, but those Vikings aren't getting past the wall. Like, they're going to be too busy getting freaking disintegrated by a swarm of Brainiac's drones. And they're going to bring down the Vikings with, like, cold, calculated precision. And then the drones are going to mount themselves to the castle wall's parapets and just rain down lasers on the Masters of Evil outside the wall.
Okay, well, Claw, he's going to generate a catapult construct made out of his soundwave powers, and that thing is just going to launch Radioactive Man over the castle wall, where he's going to crash down right onto the Legion and explode like a small nuclear bomb, just like tearing down Sinestro's castle construct and destroying Brainiac's drones, but most importantly, just obliterating the entire Legion team.
Force field. But like from Lex Luthor this time, he's going to erect this energy dome from his battle suit around his team. So yeah, the drones and the wall are taken out, but not the Legion. And once that field is down, Black Manta is immediately just going to unleash a massive energy beam from his helmet that sweeps across the entire Masters of Evil team.
Big deal. They could dodge it just by ducking.
What?
So, yeah, they duck the beam, except for Absorbing Man, who gets hit by Black Manta's beam, but he absorbs the energy and becomes like this shiny red being made out of lasers. And he's going to swing his glowing ball and chain, and it's going to unleash this energy wave right at Gorilla Grodd, just knocking him back and frying all the hair off his body. So now he's just like this hairless ape.
Well, I mean, joke's on you. You know, Absorbing Man only thinks Grodd was there, but in reality, Grodd invaded Absorbing Man's mind, and he's been mentally probing the entire Masters of Evil team and recognized that Absorbing Man was probably one of the few people on the Masters of Evil that he could mind control. So that's what he did. Absorbing Man thinks he's knocked Grodd back, but in actuality, he lasered Baron Zemo.
Okay, well, Zemo sees this energy wave coming at him, and he like dives out of the way to avoid being hit, and he's probably freaking pissed at Absorbing Man for attacking the wrong guy, and Absorbing Man's like, huh? What just happened? At which point, Zemo unholsters one of his guns, and he sprays out his Adhesive X, which is like this sticky goo that creates this unbreakable bond, and that's just going to cement Cheetah to the ground. What? So she can't run, and she's stuck on the ground.
Okay, so she'll be stuck for now, or at least like one of her legs is. But meanwhile, Solomon Grundy, he spotted Ultron, and he's gonna plow right into him, just ripping off those weird antenna ears on the sides of his head.
Adamantium, man. Like, Ultron is adamantium, so Solomon Grundy isn't breaking shit. And Ultron's gonna teach Grundy a lesson by just trapping him in this graviton field and slamming him repeatedly into the ground, and then like launching him right into Lex Luthor, knocking Lex over in his war suit onto the ground.
Okay, so Lex Luthor, he gets up from the ground and he's gonna plunge this device into Solomon Grundy's torso before he picks up Grundy in a tractor beam and hurls him at Whirlwind. And Whirlwind is gonna see Grundy coming and probably slice him to pieces in this flurry of blades. But inside Grundy was an acid bomb that explodes onto Whirlwind and just disintegrates his armor.
Does Lex Luthor have acid bombs?
Dude, he's a scientist. He has all kinds of like science stuff, like chemicals.
Okay, well, yeah, Whirlwind just completely scatters Grundy across the battlefield like if Grundy just got tossed into a blender. But Whirlwind without his armor is still dangerous. The armor just provides him protection. So Whirlwind is going to spin and whip up this small tornado that's going to lift up Black Manta into the air and just hurl him like a half mile away from the battlefield.
No, dude, Black Manta has a jetpack, so he could stop himself midair. So from the air, he's going to shoot down an electrified harpoon cable at Whirlwind, who's spinning so fast he doesn't realize the cable wraps around his neck until it's too late, and his brain is just fried from the electricity. So, zap, Whirlwind's out.
Oh shit. Whirlwind's the first to be out in the match, huh?
Yep.
Okay, well, Claw, he sees Gorilla Grodd, and Claw's familiar with African animals, being an adversary to Black Panther, so he is gonna generate this like giant leopard construct that's gonna pounce on Gorilla Grodd and just chew him to bits. And Grodd can't do shit about it because, the construct doesn't have a mind for Grodd to attack.
I mean, but Grodd does have telekinesis, and in the throes of being attacked, he's just gonna emit a telekinetic blast that's gonna disrupt the leopard's like sound frequency and just cause it to dissolve. At which point, Grodd's gonna send a psychic surge of pain through Claw, disrupting his form as well.
But he's not really susceptible to psychic attack because he has no physical brain. But either way, Grodd's attack doesn't even finish on Claw because in the middle of it, he's stopped by a hand on his arm. It's the Enchantress's hand, and she's going to bewitch this gorilla with a spell that turns Grodd against his teammates and on the side of the Masters of Evil. And Enchantress is going to have Grodd provide their entire team with psychic shielding to protect them from mental attacks from like Brainiac.
Okay.
So like once that mental shielding is in place, she's just going to magically turn Gorilla Grodd into stone. So Grodd's out of this match, and Brainiac can't do anything telepathically to the Masters of Evil.
Dude, I did not want Gorilla Grodd to go out this soon. Okay, well, meanwhile, Sinestro's ring has scanned Claw's energy signature and deduced that he's made of sound. So Sinestro materializes an airtight Iron Maiden around Claw and just vacuums all of the air out, destroying Claw's sound form. So now he's eliminated.
All right. So then Black Manta and Zemo square up, and Black Manta sees Baron Zemo's sword, and he pulls out his long daggers, and he's like, sword fight, me and you, let's go.
Cool.
And Zemo, he gets into his fencing stance, and those two go at it, like parrying and slashing and stuff, but Zemo, using his energy gauntlets, he's gonna punch out one of Black Manta's eyepieces in his big-ass helmet, because, it's just a giant target. And as Manta is taken back by that, Zemo's gonna stick his Death Ray gun into Manta's helmet and just disintegrate Black Manta's head right off.
Damn!
So Black Manta's out.
Okay. Well, before Zemo can celebrate his victory, though, a disembodied hand grabs his ankle, and he's like, what? And while he's distracted by that, another hand grabs him by the opposite arm and just rips that thing right off. It's Solomon Grundy, and his body is reconstituted after being torn to pieces by Whirlwind. So while Zemo's in shock, That's when Solomon Grundy's gonna punch his head clean right off of his shoulders.
Jeez. I guess this is like super, super strong Solomon Grundy now that he's reborn again.
Oh, he's always strong.
Well, Absorbing Man, he sees Ultron and he's like, you know, I could use some of that adamantium. So he runs over and he's going to grab Ultron, turning himself into adamantium. And Ultron's going to shrug him off like, don't fucking touch me. But now you're all in big trouble. The Absorbing Man is going to confront Sinestro, who's probably going to throw up some kind of like demon creature construct or something like that. But Absorbing Man's going to use Ultron's technoforming power to transform his ball and chain into this like giant hammer, kind of like what he used when he was the Breaker of Wills in the Fear Itself storyline. And he's going to use this giant hammer to just smash through Sinestro's constructs and then smash Sinestro's ring on his hand. And before Sinestro can even like shit his pants, Absorbing Man just smashes his head in with the adamantium hammer. And then Sinestro shits his pants because he's dead.
Well, I'm confused. So Absorbing Man didn't just become adamantium. He absorbed some of Ultron's tech into his body as well?
Yeah, like he got his technoforming power. He can absorb powers as well as just the physical states.
Okay. All right. Well, you know how one of Cheetah's feet were glued to the ground? By now, she's gnawed that thing right off, and she's pissed. And the first person she sees is Enchantress, just giving Cheetah Wonder Woman vibes. And so she attacks, moving on 3 legs, slashing before Enchantress can even like react. Cheetah's, zipped by 2 more times, taking out her hands and her throat. So Enchantress is just slashed to death before she could even really react. So Enchantress is out.
Meanwhile, I'm going to say Radioactive Man sees freaking Solomon Grundy lumbering about, and he thinks he's gross. And he figures that the monster can't grow back if there's nothing left to grow. So basically, Radioactive Man just incinerates the guy. He burns every bit of Solomon Grundy's organic tissue until there's nothing left but the stank. And guess what? It must be Saturday.
Well, it's Sunday.
Except Solomon Grundy's dead, so it's Saturday.
Okay.
And meanwhile, Cheetah tries to attack Ultron, but she's not going to do anything to him. She's not scratching him. And Ultron is going to use his Encephalo Ray on her, which is going to hypnotize her into just staying still for once, at which point he just energy blasts her to pieces. So Cheetah's out.
Wait, so who's left? Brainiac and Lex Luthor. You have Ultron, Radioactive Man, and Absorbing Man?
Yeah.
Okay, so Absorbing Man, he's part tech now. That's cool, because once Brainiac realized that, he sent out a swarm of microscopic nanites that invaded Absorbing Man's body, allowing Brainiac to take it over. And once he's fully in control, he's going to abandon his old body and just transmit his consciousness into Absorbing Man. So now he has his power, and Absorbing Man himself is out of the match. His mind is gone. And Brainiac's gonna technomorph his new body to resemble an adamantium robot skeleton. And he's just gonna straight up march right toward Radioactive Man, tanking all of his blasts since radiation can't do much to adamantium. And Brainiac's gonna technomorph his ball and chain into a robotic tentacle. And he's gonna send that out to grasp Radioactive Man and just crush him, snapping his spine and taking him out.
Okay, I mean, if Brainiac has taken over Absorbing Man, he's not just this adamantium robot now. He's also a guy who can absorb anything he touches, right? But if the comics have taught us anything, Absorbing Man's power is not stable. It's volatile and requires a lot of experience so that he doesn't accidentally absorb the wrong properties of something. And Brainiac doesn't know this, but Ultron does. He knows Absorbing Man's powers. So Ultron's gonna technomorph his body to pull moisture out of the air, like refrigeration technology kinda. And the moisture is gonna condense into water vapor. And Ultron's gonna throw this water on Brainiac, just dousing him. And that's gonna cause Brainiac to instantly turn into a puddle and disperse into the ground. Science.
That was dumb.
Well, where else is Ultron gonna get water from?
I'm sure there's blood on the battlefield. I don't know.
Okay, sure. Yeah, that's better. Ultron picks up some severed limb from the battleground and then throws some blood at Brainiac. But either way, Brainiac turns into a puddle and is no longer in the match.
Okay, so Just Lex Luthor and Ultron are left. Boom. EMP blast. Ultron is finished by Lex Luthor. That was easy.
You'd think it would be that easy, but when Lex Luthor tries to shut down Ultron, little did Lex know that his armor was already taken over by an Ultron technovirus.
Little did Ultron know that Lex recognized the Ultron virus ages ago, quarantined it, and has been wirelessly transmitting false data to Ultron to make him think his virus was working when it really wasn't.
Well, little did Lex know that Ultron assumed he would attempt some kind of failsafe against his tech virus, so he programmed it to make Lex's systems think that the virus had been quarantined, but in fact, it was not.
Well, little did Ultron know that Lex had installed the newly upgraded Norton Antivirus Plus, now available to download at norton.com.
I mean, little did Lex know that McAfee is the only tried and true antivirus software, which you can now get for 10% off using the code DUEL at checkout.
Not really,
true.
guys.
Do not try to do that.
Yeah.
But yeah, we could probably leave the match there. So either Lex Luthor discharges an EMP that shuts down Ultron, or Ultron uploads a technovirus that takes over Lex Luthor's suit, shuts it down, and then just blows up Lex Luthor.
Sure. Yeah, let's go with that.
Let's find out which one of these scenarios happens by running the simulations for this team battle and coming back with the winning team.
AJ9K, hit it.
Inputting data, running calculations, processing results, simulations complete.
All right, that was a pretty good matchup. I had a lot of fun with that speculation. Please do not try to download any antivirus software using code DUEL at checkout because it will not work. The results of the simulations were pretty interesting. There's a huge disparity between the power levels of a lot of these characters.
Oh, yeah.
For both of our teams. My weakest guy was Whirlwind, and his stats were way different from my most powerful guy, who was Ultron.
Yeah, comparatively, my weakest guy was Solomon Grundy, who was by far the weakest member of either team, though Brainiac was the strongest member of either team. So I had both the weakest and the strongest guys.
Yeah, Solomon Grundy is not impressive statistically, like, at all. Poor guy. But, like, Brainiac is so overpowered, he almost has no business being in this match.
Which I love.
So you kind of have that going for and against you. A lot of your guys actually had winning records against the Masters of Evil, including Lex Luthor, Brainiac, Gorilla Grodd won a majority of his matches, so did Sinestro, which is quite impressive. The only guys on my team that had winning records were Ultron, Enchantress, and Claw. The rest of them won around a quarter to a third of their matches. Freaking Solomon Grundy, though, only won 8% out of all of his battles, his thousands of battles.
Yeah, that threw my average off big time. The lowest guy for you was, 22% win rate?
Yeah, Whirlwind won about a quarter of his matches. So averaging it all out and considering all the stats, who do you think is going to win this match?
Oh, it's got to be the Legion of Doom. And Instagram wholeheartedly agrees with me. 74% of our Instagram poll takers said that the Legion was going to win.
And that's why I'm going to say that poll is full of crap. But let's go ahead and get the real results. AG9K, the results, please.
Here you are, sir.
All right, the winner in the team duel between the Legion of Doom and the Masters of Evil is the Masters of Evil.
The what?
The Legion of Doom. wait. I tried to fake you out right there, but no, I couldn't do it. The Legion of Doom won. And it wasn't that close. They won 56.9% of the time over the Masters of Evil, 43.1%. So averaging out to 1,000 simulated battles, Legion of Doom won 569 and Masters of Evil won 431.
Yeah, that's a pretty solid win percentage for Team DC here. It just goes to show that quantity of years of comic book history does not equate to quality on the battlefield.
This is bullshit. It's so lame losing to a team that's like barely even a fucking team. They were invented in the cartoon and then they like made one appearance in the comics.
They're a real team in our hearts, Joseph. In our hearts. That's what counts.
That's stupid.
You're stupid, clearly, for choosing the losing team.
Your face is stupid.
Your face looks like my face. which also makes your face stupid. Damn it! Just quit while you're behind. That does it for this team duel. Let us know what you guys thought about the results by writing to us at dynamicduelpodcast@gmail.com or by visiting us on Instagram, which you can find a link to in our show notes or by visiting our website at dynamicduel.com.
And on our site, you could also find a link to our Patreon page where you could join our Dynamic 2.0 tier and chat with us and fellow listeners, our Fantastic 4 tier, which gets you bonus content each month, our X-Force tier that makes you an executive producer of this podcast, or our newest tier that lets you join our Dynamite Podcast Network.
Please don't forget to rate the show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Podchaser, or on our website.
Our next episode is going to be a review for a movie that ties into this duel. We're going to review Justice League Doom, which is an animated DC film that incorporates the Legion of Doom as the villains.
It's a great animated film from DC. If you guys haven't seen it, definitely check it out before next week. But that does it for this episode. We want to give a big thanks to our executive producers, Ken Johnson,
John Starosky,
Zachary Hepburn,
Dustyn Balcom,
Miggy Matanguihan,
Brandon Estergard,
Nathaniel Wagner,
Levi Yeaton,
Austin Wesolowski,
AJ Dunkerley,
Scott Camacho,
Adam Speas,
Andrew Schunk,
and Dean Maleski for helping make this podcast possible. And we'll talk to you guys next week.
Up, and away!
True believers.
My supervillain team is called the Masters of Debaters.